What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Flippin' Pucks and Chuckin' Knucks, the podcast. Of course, I'm Danny P. Alongside me, Dougie. How's it going today, Dougie?
I'm doing all right. It seems like every time we do this, it's snowing out here in Raleigh. Had another snowstorm the night before, so perfect hockey weather. But yeah, I'm doing good, doing good. Been enjoying what the Capitals have been doing this week.
Nice, nice. I saw that. Looks like Obi got another two last night.
Yeah, he continues to. I mean, everyone was talking that he was going to slow down and stuff like that, but he continues to kind of pace the league in goals, and I believe he's leading the league in points as well. Much to I guess Oilers fans' chagrin, but no, yeah. So I guess I felt like I was just going to go ahead and just kind of discuss what's been happening in Washington's world.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a great another great week of hockey. And again, guys, this is the Flippin' Pucks and Chuckin' Knucks podcast. Just a couple of guys talking NHL hockey, something that we both thoroughly enjoy. Um, sh- Great big shout out to everyone who sent in pictures and clips and videos last week of them playing hockey. We had over 100 submissions. Was just great. It was awesome. We really enjoyed watching you guys, watching the clips and seeing the pictures of looks like tournaments and whatnot. But if you guys are interested in sending us clips or anything, it's flippinpucksandchuckinknucks at gmail.com. You can also send us those clips on the website as well. But yeah, let's dig right in. So how are the Capitals doing? How was their week? And it seems like every time I'm on the Twitter feed, it looks like I'm hearing about another Ovechkin goal.
Yeah, which honestly, that's been the only consistent thing for the Caps this season. Kind of a same thing this week as last week, which I was talking about the COVID protocol and injuries, and then Orlov got suspended too. Kind of to kick right off, I mentioned last week that at the beginning of the season I was saying that Vanacek was my guy in net, and then Samsonov's kind of outplayed him so far this season. But yeah, he got the bulk of the games this week. Vanacek did. It seems like the brass and Laviolette seem like they want to kind of give him the shot now to see if he could take over the number one. I don't think it's a bad problem to have, but I also don't think Samsonov's been playing poorly. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, the Capitals so far in the month of January haven't been doing the best. Really don't think you could blame that on the goalies or anything. I think you could just blame it on all the roster moves and stuff like that, as far as young guys having to step in because of COVID protocol and injuries, like I said. So I don't know. I mean, Vanacek's played well. He got 2 of the 3 starts this week, so and he looked okay. Um, the Capitals have. I can't remember or not if I joked last week, but I mentioned that every time the Capitals played in overtime, they were losing. But they had 2 overtime games this week, and they're 2-0. So they're kind of making me look like a fool, including a pretty big OT win last night, kind of come from behind there. But yeah, so
Someone from the PR department have heard you talking shit and was like, okay, okay, now they're calling us out, boys.
exactly. No, but yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Oshi's still hurt. I think that he has a couple more days left on IR, but I'm not sure if until he's eligible to come back. But I'm not sure if he's gonna. I think it's gonna last a little bit longer. From what I understand, it's his shoulder, which he's been dealing with before. It looked like in the game that he got hurt, it was an innocent play, and this happened late last week. But like the puck was flipped up in front of the net, and he reached up to grab it, missed the puck, but like it was literally something as simple as that. It wasn't a hit or anything. He
Mhm,
just reached up to like grab the puck down, and it looked like he tweaked something, and he didn't play the rest of that game. So I'm thinking he re-aggravated his shoulder injury,
mhm.
and I'm not sure if they're going to keep him out a little bit longer term for precaution or what. But honestly, I mean, I'd like to just keep him out until he's fully healthy.
Yeah.
It does the team and himself no good if he keeps coming back and then having to exit the lineup again. I mean, then you're constantly having to readjust the lines and stuff like that. So, I mean, kind of find something that works right now. And then obviously, hopefully, he's 100% here soon, and you can get him in the lineup full time again. Um, like, the other big news is Dmitry Orlov got suspended 2 games, and that kind of leads me to this, and I'll kind of toss it to you after just about this. But yeah, he need Nikolai Ehlers in the Winnipeg game,
Hmm.
and there's no penalty on the play. There's no penalty on the
Hmm.
play. Ehlers was pissed. You could see him on the bench just reacting, yelling at the referee and stuff like that. and then the league tosses down, a 2-game suspension on Orlov, which I think was rightfully so.
Hmm.
Like even watching it back, I was actually shocked there was no penalty on the play. But then it got me thinking, and this is kind of what I wanted to get your opinion on, was like I kind of think it looks bad on the league, and I understand that like during the game it's a little bit hard to make that judgment call, and for suspension it obviously does get looked over by the Department of Player Safety and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But how can you go ahead and suspend a guy for 2 games on a play that there wasn't a penalty for? Now, I'm not saying that Orlov didn't deserve the suspension. I'm saying like there should have been a penalty call there in the game, and I mean it's happened before throughout the league. I think the referees, if you're going to suspend, like I don't know, I just think there needs to be a little bit more consistency along those lines.
So I'm a big fan of just going ahead and calling it the way it needs to be called, period. So if you go through and 2 minutes have gone by, an offsides and icing, something hits, the league should be constantly reviewing the games as it is. For every game going on, they should have one person on staff that's just sort of kind of like a maybe a retired official or someone who's sort of kind of watching maybe different angles that is not just the main feed. And if they see something that's questionable, that needs to be called, next whistle, the little red light flashes in the box and says, "Hey, look, that has to be called because it's clear cut a penalty. It affected the play." And then do it the right way. It sort of kind of goes the same with goals as well. Is they've gotten a little bit better as far as going through and making sure that the goals are goals and they need to be called the correct way. But like, I'm not really a big fan of the challenge when it's like you only get one challenge, and if you're wrong, you get a penalty. I think that is not the greatest way of going about doing it, because it's like, what happens if you think that something's wrong in the first period and then something worse happens in the third? I am not a big fan of that. Call it the way it needs to be called. If you have to review stuff, you have to review it. I feel like there's such this big push to have a strict time frame on how long these games should take, and that's not the point of the game. Ideally, we want the game wrapped up in 2.5 hours, but if it takes 2:45, 2:45. If it takes 2:15, it takes 2:15. But I definitely think that reviews should be happening on a more consistent basis, especially with something like this, because it's great. It's not great, but he got suspended for 2 games, right? But that didn't help them in that game, you know? So,
Exactly. That's kind of my point. Yeah, because Ehlers was right to be pissed, and Winnipeg won the game anyway. But like Winnipeg should have been on the power play for
yeah.
sure, for sure. And it's actually kind of funny you mentioned goals, because I want to say it was the Boston game. Boston had scored, and this was the first time I'd seen this happen. Usually, like at least in my experience, they wait till the play ends and then they review it, and if it was a goal, they pull
Hmm.
it back. But Boston had scored, and the play was still going on, and it was probably going on for like 30, 45
Hmm.
seconds, and then the referees blew it dead because there was someone in the booth
Yeah.
watching, and they had called it a goal while the play was still going on, and they stopped the play, they brought it to center, and they put the time back
Yeah.
on. And it was interesting for me because that's the first time I saw them stop the play themselves without there being like a just a generic stoppage from
Yeah.
gameplay. I do think that, to your point about having someone, obviously they do. So I do think they should implement that with penalties, especially ones that would significantly impact the
Yeah.
game, like a knee and call or a penalty that could potentially result in a suspension is definitely something I think you want to also call in the
Right.
game. And I definitely think those are the plays you should be looking out for too. You know, maybe whistle play dead and call the penalty. Um, I'm not a big fan of the penalty after like reviewing a goal, no goal type situation
Hmm.
either. I understand why it's there. Um, that said, like I don't know. I understand why it's there, but I'm really not a fan of that either. But yeah, I definitely do think the league needs to maybe do something about some of these calls that you know result in hurting the team of the offender
Yeah.
long term, but they really don't do anything to impact the current game that's going on. And I think that's where it's the most impactful is during that game, right? Like I said, it didn't really hurt Winnipeg because they ended up winning anyway. But
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I guess I should clarify, like when it comes to the goals, like if the puck, if it's one of those situations where it's a centimeter barely roll and you have to zoom in, that's where I definitely think it sort of kind of gets old if you're doing it every single time. But my big thing is we should make sure we're correct in whatever the call is. Period. I understand it's a little bit of a pain to slow down the game sometimes and like break momentum, but at the same point in time, you know, you owe it to these players and you owe it to the fans to make sure the fact that the calls are getting called correctly at the end of the day. And I think to me that's extremely important coming from as we are very much professional beer league hockey players. So I heard
Professional in air
it.
quotes, in very, very large air quotes.
But no, you know, damn it, I heard it zing off the back of the net and it came out real quick. That's a good goal. So,
Well, they actually last night on I want to say it was Ovi's second. They kind of did that. I mean, it was a clear goal, but yeah, it went in and out so quick. They ended up. I mean, it was a quick review, but whatever, it counted. Um, to kind of conclude my opinions on the Caps this week. A player that I had penciled in for like 2025 at the beginning of the season was Daniel
mhm,
Sprong. Um, I kind of want to get in my soapbox here for a little bit. I still think he's that type of player who could put in 20 or 25. But he's experiencing his like second or third healthy scratch kind of
mhm,
streak right now. Um, from my opinion, it's just like with the injuries and stuff like that. It looks like it's hard to put him. It's kind of hard to find where to slot him
mhm,
best. Um, I I mean, he's a scoring player. He has really, really fast, such a great shot. Last year when Ovechkin went down, he kind of picked up the slack. I think for all the games that Ovi was out, he at least had a goal. But it's kind of hard. I think Laviolette's trying to balance the lines with. I mean, obviously you have the top two centers back, so you have Backstrom and Kuznetsov, and then you have Ovechkin um, on the wing and Wilson. So I think they're trying to get another player on each of the top two scoring lines to kind of do the dirty work, and that's not
mhm,
Daniel Sprong. So then he's kind of relegated to that third line, and I mean, I guess Connor McMichael's been stepping in there, naturally a center, but they haven't played wing. So I think they're just trying to give McMichael some more time. I feel like they know what they have in Sprong and stuff like that. But I also think Sprong's been on Peter Laviolette's bad side a little bit. It seems like every time there's a breakaway that the Caps have, like four, it's Daniel Sprong. And I mean, obviously, I'm just at the mercy of the TV's camera and how zoomed in that is. But to my eyes, it looks like every time like the play is in the Caps end, he seems to be looking to break the zone early and then kind of cherry pick and get that breakaway, which works if he gets the puck and stuff. But I really feel like he's kind of coasting his own end so much so that it's like noticeable. And I'm a guy who does not have the letter D in his vocabulary, so I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to defense. But and that's how obvious it is that he's kind of neglectful in his own end. So I think that's where I think that's where that it might be hurting him and getting him scratched. But I mean, he has the 2025 goal potential, and I would have loved to see him getting looks on the top two lines. But at this point, I think it's really on him to kind of because I think maybe he feels pressure to try and get the puck in the back of the net, so he is breaking early. But I don't know, like even from playing and just watching that sometimes you just have to play the right way and
yeah.
the bounces come your way and you get rewarded. Doing the simple things, you might not go on a goal scoring streak, but you'll finally get some consistency offensively. And I think he kind of needs to take a page out of that book and start just playing right. Don't worry too much about getting the puck in the back of the net, and it'll come.
So you're standing on your soapbox on January 23rd, 2022, talking about how a player on your team isn't playing defense. This has got it, y'all. If you've known Doug, he does not play defense at all. He accidentally blocked a shot one time and it ended up in cracking a couple of teeth. And trust me, like I was so proud of him when it happened. He's like, it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. I was, it just felt like my soul like left my body. I
you
was just so disappointed.
Well, he's making me look like a fool now though with these because like I said, I'm sort of upset and I'm taking it personally because I had all the faith in the world that he's going to put up 2025 and he might not even hit
Damn.
15 at this rate. Um, but yeah, I mean, I really can't complain with I mean McMichael being on that third line wing slot either. He's looked good. Um, Kind of lastly, the Caps power play. I think it's 29th in the league. I don't think anyone
Hmm.
was expecting that. Obviously, with all the injuries and stuff, and I don't think they've had the full like power play unit of Carlson, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Ovechkin, and Oshie together more than 2 games, just based on different injuries and again the
Hmm.
COVID protocol and stuff like that. So I think a little bit comes down to that, but I mean, honestly, it just looks bad. Um, and which is crazy too, considering Ovechkin's leading the league in goals, and I mean, I think he might have like five on the
Oh,
power play, which is completely out of. It's
yeah,
sort of
completely.
out of character, right? Because you'd think the majority of his goals would be, which is, I mean, it's great because then it's like, well, hopefully if they turn it around, um, then he'll start
Yeah.
scoring some more, right? But I don't know. I've been saying hopefully they turn it around since November. So what do I know? Because they haven't really done much. And the thing is, Blaine Forsythe, he's the one who coaches the power play, and he's been with the team for so long. Even when Trotz was the coach, and after that, Todd Reardon. So I mean, Laviolette chose to keep him around
Yeah.
to coach the power play. I don't think it's a bad decision. I mean, obviously, because the Capitals have perennially been in the top 10 power
Hmm.
play, percentage. So maybe this is just an off year. It hasn't hurt the team too much. I do think some of the games they've been losing, especially this month, were winnable if they would have converted on the power play because they've been given a bunch of chances. So at this point, I'm just like continue to get some points. Kind of pace. Even if you have to finish wild card, just pace into the playoffs, and then hopefully get that power play fixed come April. But yeah, besides that, I can't complain. Like I said, I'm pumped that they're starting to win in overtime because that's nice. I was getting to the point where I just wanted to turn the games off once it hit extra innings, just because I was like, I know how this is going to end, right? And then so yeah, but I can't really complain about the week. What about you? I saw the
They
Canes had a
did.
couple high scoring games.
It feels really good to beat the Boston Bruins. It really does. I hate people don't understand how much I hate the Boston Bruins, right? Quick story time. The year's 2009, I think 2010, the year you and I met essentially, and I went through and I was dating a girl who was a giant Bruins fan, right? And for Christmas, she wanted a Bruins jersey. So me being the 20-year-old baller that I was, got her a Boston Bruins jersey. 2 weeks later, I found out that was cheating on me. So needless to say, I've hated the Bruins ever since. And so it's nice to see a 7-1 victory over the Boston Bruins. A lot of shit talking was going back and forth between Marchant and Vincent Trocheck, the Prius to Lambo. Did you see that at all on Twitter?
I briefly saw that. What I really saw was just like all over social media was the whole comment about the escrow shit.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I figured it stemmed from something, so I feel like maybe one of the Hurricanes started it.
So essentially, what happened was is a Boston reporter equated, essentially saying that Trocheck plays like Marchand, right? And Trocheck was like, "I'm not a rat," and so Marchand clapped back with, "That's like comparing a Lambo to a Prius." And so after the game, the Hurricanes chipped in and said, uh, something along the lines of we'll take a Prius any day over the Lambo, or I think it was actually the hit that Trocheck had on Marchand that just was essentially they tweeted out, never saw a Prius total a Lambo before, and it was humorous. So the following, I guess the following morning, Marchand woke up, decided to choose violence, and made the escrows comment. Uh, it was fun. It's all in good fun. I mean, it is what it is when it comes to something like that. Um, but no, watching that game, I felt like I was seeing two different tier teams. It honestly looked like that first period looked like uh, the Carolina Canes were some superstars, and the Boston Bruins were a bunch of ECHLers, some beer league hockey team that just figured out how to tie their skates the proper way. Rask got chased. I think it was something like 5 goals on 12 shots. Of course, I picked up Rask the day before in our fantasy league, uh,
Way to go.
and that was a swift minus 8.8 for those towards that. So and funny enough, I lost. I'm losing by like 3 points. So yeah, not happy on that. But yeah, so that was a fantastic game. Essentially, just seeing everyone's contribute, every scoring. Martinook had a great little pass, uh, uh, just setting up Lorenz, and like that was a great game. Next up, we had the Rangers. With the Rangers, the fact that it was more like with the Rangers, we had I think it was 6-3 was the final. Canes came out flying. Great game. It was a home game, so whenever with people who don't know, living in North Carolina, a lot of people moved down um, from New York into the Raleigh area because cost of living is so cheap, and for $300,000 you can buy yourself a beautiful house, where in New York you can't buy shit for $300,000. So these damn Yankees are moving down here at a
Uh,
these
you can watch your tongue. I might start wearing my Bruins jersey when we do these. Fuck you.
um, no, but so essentially, there's just a lot of New Yorkers down here in Raleigh now. So it's become Rangers games become almost like a home game for the Rangers. And so it was really nice to see the Canes sort of kind of stick it to them and make the Ranger fans get a little sobby. But yeah, so Canes been playing well. Uh, Last game was last night against the Devils. It was Jack LaFontaine's second game, first game starting, second game overall playing for the Canes. The Canes lost 7-4. He did not look great. He looked like he was struggling a little bit, and it wasn't. I'm not concerned about it because it's his second ever start. You were hoping with the team being the Devils that he'd be able to get the W. He wasn't able to, and it's okay. That's not the end of the world. Going to the Facebook fan page, I know a little segment we haven't done in a while is how crazy some of these fans are. One of the Canes fans started clipping all the complaints into one like picture and then posting the picture so we could sort of kind of see all the stupidity in one post, and it's
Is there
crazy.
enough bandwidth on the internet
Yeah,
for that?
I don't know if there is with the Hurricanes fans because it was bad. Like, why did why this guy should still be in school? He's a horrible player. This is the second coming of Darling. This is all these. It's just like chill. It is his second ever game in the NHL. He's gonna, it's not. It's the world's best most elite league. You're not gonna come in here and get shutouts left and right like it's nothing. Even with the Canes having the stellar defense that they do, it takes time, and sometimes I don't think people understand that, and it's frustrating. But for overall for the Hurricanes this week, 2-1, solid week, and as they continue to be, you know, right now considered third in the standings. I'm looking at right now, but they're only 2 points behind the Rangers, but have 4 games in hand. So with all the cancellations and whatnot and postponements, I think the Hurricanes will be able to take them. But team I sort of kind of didn't expect to see in the standings as they are is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Um,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
it's crazy how much they've been able to get everything together.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that like Crosby coming back has helped? I mean, well, obviously, but like the leadership wise, because I mean, he wasn't. I want to say like he didn't. It didn't look like he had a strong start like statistically, but I think it just goes to show like his leadership and how he is the heart and soul of that team. Because it seems like they've just been rolling since he came back, and they got Malkin back a couple games ago.
I, it's interesting, right? So I do feel like whenever you've got a player who's sort of kind of injured for the first part of the season and then gradually works his way back in, almost sort of kind of like a mid-season acquisition. So the Penguins essentially without Malkin, without Crosby, sort of kind of saw where they were at that point in time. But then you get Crosby back, and then you sort of have people filing back in now with Malkin as well. Now we're sort of kind of seeing what the Penguins were capable for the full season. Um, I still think that they'll probably end up third in the division. I do think it's going to probably end up being Rangers, Canes, Pens, or excuse me, Canes, Rangers, Pens, Caps, and Wildcard one. Um, I don't foresee the Penguins being able to drop both the Canes and the Rangers and the Caps. Uh, I- don't get me wrong, they're a great team, but I still feel like goaltending is still going to be an issue for them. Tristan Jarry is still very much unproven, and I don't think that he'll be able to to just take on all these massive teams because we're going to get into. I think the Hurricanes haven't even played the thing yet, so we're going to come to a point in time where I'm guarantee you it'll be Caps one night, Rangers one night, Canes the next, where like they're not going to have that ability to pick and choose where they want him to play, as make sure he's playing the best team. I think that he's going to end up starting to see these teams consistently, and he's it's going to be rough. I do feel like Penguins are still a good team. I, I could easily see them getting out of the first round. If it came down to like a Penguins Rangers first round, I could see the Penguins coming out of it. Just because of the fact that there's so much experience there throughout the playoffs. But I don't think the Penguins are Stanley Cup contenders at this very moment. Are they a great team? Sure, definitely, 100%. I don't see them making it past the second round. I don't see them beating the Canes in a 7-game series right now.
Yeah, I mean, I could get on board with that. I think the Caps have played them twice. Once at the first month of the year, and the Caps won pretty easily. Then the Penguins took the Caps by, I think it was a goal in early December. And to your point, like now as things are coming down to the wire, it looks like the Caps have them twice in February. So that'll be really interesting. I think it'll be a test for both teams. But yeah, I'm not a huge Jari fan. Um, if I was Pittsburgh, I probably would have kept Matt Murray. And just going off of how he played, last night versus Washington, Murray's still a really really good
Hmm.
goaltender. I know it's always almost a roll of the dice when you have two goalies with really really good potential, which one you want to keep. But I never really liked Jari. But so yeah, I mean I don't know. I do think Pittsburgh's obviously a playoff team. But yeah, I think 7-game series, whether it's Carolina or the Rangers, I think they wouldn't make it out of there. I do expect them to finish in the wild card. I also expect at this point Washington to finish in the wild card. So how it totally ends up, we'll see. But I was kind of cool to see the Hurricanes put a crush on the Rangers too, just because I think those are two top
Hmm.
teams right now, and I think it's always nice to see those teams meet, because obviously you could beat up on some crappier teams and stuff like that, but it's always nice to see the two teams kind of who are pacing the conference like the Hurricanes and the Rangers are, play each other and just see how those two teams battle. Kind of just touching on the standings again real quick. I did want to say that the Flyers have severely disappointed me this season. I fully expected them to be a wild card team, and they're kind of disappointing me here. They're kind of towards the bottom of the East.
I don't. And that team is about to go through a complete rebuild. I think they've been pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. My understanding is that Clyde Giroux is entering the last year. Next year will be his last year of his current contract, and the rumor is that he's probably going to be moved to a different team. Um, I I just don't see the Flyers being like you know, every year we hear it's the Flyers, Broad Street Bullies, this, that, the third. But at the end of the day, it's like, you guys haven't really you haven't really made that much of a splash in the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years at this point. Like show me something in the playoffs before you're gonna come to me and tell me about how big and bad the Flyers are. Because every time I look at the standings, I'm seeing them not making the playoffs or being an 8, 9, 9, 10 team. I'd love to see a little bit more consistency out of them before we start talking about anything else. Um,
So I was going to say, kind of while we're on the East, do you see anything changes with other than like the teams that we
no,
have in there right now? Do you think any teams able to kind of take over? Do you think the playoff is kind of set? It's just a matter of who finishes
I think the
where.
playoff is set. Honestly, for those who don't have the standings in front, it's Pittsburgh, Carolina, in the Metro. For the Atlantic Division, it's Florida, Tampa, Toronto. And the wild card is Washington with 55 points and Boston with 50. The next closest team is Detroit with 42 points. And I just don't see Detroit being going to be able to win the games that they need to win to bump them into the wild card. But I will say this: there are two teams that are not in the playoffs right now who have the caliber of organization that could bounce themselves back into it. I think it's Detroit could with Eisman at the helm, being the general manager, trying to push them. Going if say for example Detroit goes out and gets Clyde Giroux, right? That team now could easily go on a 10 game winning streak, you know. And then the team that I think sort of kind of surprises everyone that isn't or up the standings right now is the New York Islanders. You know, they've only played 34 games. They're at 34 points. You know, so if they got if they could start cranking out some wins, would it be enough for them to actually make the playoffs? Probably not. But I'm surprised that they are where they're at on the standings. It just seems like it's just not been their year. You know, I read up that they started their first 13 games of the season were on the road when they were finishing up construction on Nassau Coliseum. So like that's a rough stretch. 13 games on the road to start a season. That's really hard to get things rolling with. So, but I think for the most part we are sort of set with the Eastern standings. What about you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was kind of just obviously because my brother's a Red Wings fan. It was kind of cool to see them, in the wild card for a little bit there. Because it would have been cool to see them make the playoffs. But I kind of brought this up to him too. Is like it sort of sucks for Detroit because I do even if they brought in someone like Giroux or that they make some other splash during the trade deadline, I just think there's too much like
Hmm.
points to make up. I mean, they're only 8 points out, but yeah, I mean, they're going to be playing good teams as well. So, and I really don't think any of the teams that are currently in the playoffs are going to start slowing down enough for Detroit to
Right.
catch them. So from a Red Wings standpoint, it kind of sucks for them because they're not going to get a top five pick. And we kind of addressed it last week too. It's like when you're a team that's not making the playoffs, but you're also not really sucking. It's really hard to really
Right.
fully rebuild your team. And I think that's going to happen to Detroit again this year. I completely agree with you with the Islanders. I think they've been the worst victim of this whole COVID stuff. From what I recall, they were really the first team to suffer a lot of postponed games, and that was pretty
Hmm.
early on in the season. So I think they're still working on gelling as a team. Again, I think it's just an off year. I don't think you could really judge that team based
Hmm.
on this year. I think everyone, at the beginning of the season had them at the top of the Atlantic. So, or
Metro. Yeah.
what, top of the Metro. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Barry Trotz is still a good coach, and I think he'll probably get them pretty close. But yeah, kind of again, I think there's just too many points to make up for them, especially. But yeah, I think we're kind of set. Boston, Washington, Toronto, Tampa, Florida, Carolina, Rangers, Pittsburgh. I think those are going to be your teams, come playoff time, and which is great too, because those are all pretty solid teams. They all have at some point had a rivalry
Yeah.
amongst each other. So I think for TV ratings and stuff like that, I think you're in for a hell of a playoffs,
Oh
at
yeah,
least out of the
definitely.
East.
And that's what the great thing with the Atlantic as well is that last season with the Panthers Lightning series that was just hardcore. That was some of the best hockey I think you've ever seen. Game one last year for any new fans, if you can go back and watch Game one last year of Florida Tampa. That was some of the best hockey I think I've ever seen. I think the final was like 6-5 or something outrageous, hitting all around. They were out for blood at that point in time. It was a fantastic series. You couldn't ask for a better playoff series. And then with Toronto and Boston as well, you don't really know how these things are going to end up. But at this point in time, if it started today, essentially in the Atlantic at least, you would look at uh, Florida would be playing Boston and Tampa would be playing Toronto. So it's that's just some good hockey. Florida Boston is that would be a great grinding it out with two teams that are sort of kind of built very similar. Florida has sort of kind of quietly become finesse up front and tough and rugged in the back. There's some innuendo joke there, I'm sure. But, and then you've got Tampa, Toronto just being strictly finesse at that point. I mean, it wouldn't. That game might go 4 games. I mean, like it, but more than likely, I couldn't see it going past five. With Tampa coming on top, but you have to think with Toronto that there is some level of desperation, just to, not even to win the cup, just get to the second round of the playoffs. Come, whatever way it needs to be, just get there.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and then couple potential original six matchups too, which I know everyone likes to harp on that, and I mean I'm kind of whatever about it, right? It was years ago, 1900s, but yeah, I just think I think any matchup is going to be entertaining. I agree with you with Toronto wholeheartedly. I know you mentioned how well Jack Campbell's been playing. He's such a great guy. I'd like to see him have
Hmm.
some playoff success. Just listening to his interviews and stuff like that, he's so humble, and I feel like he's really loved by the team. But yeah, I think for Toronto, they are looking for at least one series victory, if not more. And anything other than that, I do think, and we talk about it all the time, but I do think that they'll probably be kind of like Edmonton almost, where you're looking to maybe move some pieces and see what you can retool. Not
Yeah,
overhaul the team, obviously, but you have to start getting playoff
yeah,
wins. You
and
just have to.
so both of us are from the states for anyone wondering, but I'm sort of at the point now where you just want for any Canadian team to have some level of success, you know. And I don't necessarily just mean like the Canadians last year. You made it to the final, we get it, but like look how much how far they've fallen from grace, you know. We want to see a team that comes into the playoffs, a Canadian team that's the favorite win, and then go through and get right up there to it, because it seems like every year, like this year, the top contenders are essentially are what Canes, Florida, Tampa. Those are really the big three that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Should win a Stanley Cup. It should be one of those three teams. I would love to hear, hey, Toronto should be there, or hey, there's no reason why Edmonton doesn't make it. That to me is where as a fan of a team that was bad for so long, I don't like seeing teams just consistently lose every single season. It sucks. No fan base should really have to go through that unless you're a Buffalo Sabres fan. Then, by all means, continue to lose. Do you, Juju? But like,
They're bringing back those old
watch
school
them make the
jerseys next year, I
playoffs.
think.
I'm calling now. They're going to make the playoffs next year when they bring back those Saber heads.
Let's rebrand by bringing back old jerseys instead of like re-upping the
Watch
team.
Michael Pekka be
Let's
the new coach of the team. Hajek will be the GM.
do you couldn't hurt, I'll tell you that.
But yeah, no,
But
I just think that I would prefer to see some of these teams that are struggling consistently actually be able to do something and build themselves and get themselves back on the right track. Like, like we joke about the Sabres, but the Ottawa Senators have been right as well. It wasn't 5, 6 years ago that they were one game away from playing for the Stanley Cup final, against the Penguins. And it just seems like since then, everything that could go wrong for the Senators has gone wrong. Be it ownership, be it the Carlson situation, whatever it is, it's consistently just gone awry for the Senators. Um, but that being said, let's head over to the West, and unless there's anything else you want to touch up on for the East.
no, no, that's kind of where I was at. I was because it looks like the West is going to finish a lot more
Oh,
interesting.
oh yeah,
It's a
no,
lot more
definitely,
tight
and
there.
and it's the West. The West is always fun to watch because it's a little bit different brand of hockey than the East. The East is a little bit more finesse. The West always seems like it's always been a little bit heavier of a game, unless you're the Avalanche, who's still kind of play that East Coast style, um, in the Western Coast, which is I think why they're so successful. But yeah, like for the Central, we've got Colorado, Nashville, St. Louis, Pacific, Vegas, Anaheim, Kings, wild card being Minnesota and San Jose. I will say this: I am definitely eating some words. In our beginning of the season, I said that no California team would make the playoffs, and that looks like that's probably not going to happen. But
Every California team is going to make
talk
the
about here.
playoffs. You're close.
Yeah, we're talking about hearing something and doing something out of spite. Like someone heard that and they passed it along to their friends. Like, hey, what the hell is this shit about? Like. But yeah, I don't see honestly I don't see Calgary making it. I think that really I think if there is a team that can make it, it's probably Dallas. Um, and then
Okay.
again, Winnipeg is only four games out, or 4 points out. Um, but I do end up sort of kind of thinking that like the Western is also sort of kind of set. I don't think that there's going to be too many more changes to it. Um, I don't really foresee any team sort of kind of taking that giant leap. But then again, Vancouver is also only 4 points back as well.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, Vancouver's been my biggest surprise. I felt like they would have been where they were at now, kind of at the beginning of the season. Obviously, with the coaching change and Boudreaux coming in, kind of how we touched on last week, that's definitely helped them. Um, I, at least for them, I do think it might be a little too late, but who knows? I think Pedersen's had a pretty off year. Um, he's turned it on a little bit. Which has been hurting my fantasy team. But he's sort of turned it around. He's sort of turned it around a little bit. So I don't know. Maybe Boudreaux's more open offensively style game will help him turn it around and hopefully turn the Canucks season around. But I don't know. I think if a team squeaks in, I think it'll probably be Calgary. They've been pretty consistent the whole year. I really like what they have up front. Um, I'm a huge Johnny Gaudreau fan, so I mean, and Michael Backlund's an extremely underrated player. I think he's a really good center. I think he'd be a number two on any team for the most part, save for maybe Pittsburgh when you're playing behind Malkin and Crosby. But yeah, I think it's kind of set myself. I am surprised that LA is where they are. I did not expect them to be in the playoffs. Anaheim's kind of shocked me as well. But it does seem like every night you turn on the highlights, one of their young guys, whether it's Zegras, Milano, or whoever, they're doing something flashy and amazing and just giving us something to talk about. So, I guess seeing them sitting there now, it's not too much of a shock. But at the beginning of the season, I wouldn't have expected it. Obviously, Vegas was a front runner for everyone. I think if you didn't have them penciled in at the top, then you probably didn't haven't watched hockey the last 4 or so years. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had Colorado as my Stanley Cup, winner. Actually, I think is who I had at the beginning of the season. So I know they started off extremely slow. I know McKinnon and Landeskog were out for some time. I think Landeskog had suspension. He's been on and off COVID protocol. McKinnon has as well. So it's crazy to me that they've been. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's crazy, but they definitely picked up the pace, and I didn't expect to see them at the top of the Central right now, just with how far they were behind. I think Kemper's been playing better than what he was at the start of the season. I know Avs fans they're not sold on him, but I really don't think he'll be a reason for any lack of success that they have. I think they just have too good of a team. And yeah, so I mean, I'm pumped to see Colorado back up there, but Nashville, St. Louis right after them.
Yeah,
I mean, those are kind of shoe-ins. I think at the beginning of the season, if you'd have those three there, and then obviously again back to Vegas, and who's only probably gonna
yeah,
get even better when Eichel
yeah.
comes
Eichel, I
and
think they're
starts with them.
saying
So
mid-February, end of February. So he'll have 2 months worth of uh, uh, game time before the actual playoffs, before they really start cranking things up. A team I actually sort of kind of wanted to highlight. There's actually two teams, but the first team was Seattle. I know that they're sort of kind of they're new to the NHL and whatnot, but they are struggling pretty hard wholeheartedly here with in 40 games only having 28 points. Do you think there's one area that needs to be upgraded for everything else, or is it a coaching philosophy? Is it defense, goaltending, offense? Where do you think their biggest weakness is?
whew, it's tough to say. I think they could probably shore up their deal a little bit, but at the same time, I think they had the poor fortune of following what
Hmm.
Vegas did as an expansion team. I think if you're a casual fan or you're a new Seattle Krakens fan, your expansion team. Oh, look what Vegas did! They made the Stanley Cup Finals their first year. So maybe those were your expectations, but I think anyone who saw the draft and the kind of players that were available and the players that they chose, I think they kind of expected Seattle to struggle. So I'm not really shocked where they're at. As far as goaltending goes, I really don't think that's an issue. Just taking a peek at it, it looks like both Drager and Grubauer have over like
Hmm.
point 0.3 goals a game against. That's pretty high, but I also don't think that
Hmm.
speaks to their level of goaltending. I just think they don't have that good of a team in front of them. Dreiger was coming from Florida the year before, and obviously Florida was a great team that year, and Grubauer was coming from Colorado. So I think they're going to have to adjust to maybe seeing more shots and more quality shots. Because I mean, no offense to Kraken fans, the Seattle Kraken
Right.
aren't the Florida
Right.
Panthers or the Avalanche, right? Um, yeah, I really think it, but I also think they need a top end offensive guy. Right now, Eberle's kind of pacing the team in points. Um, I feel like Tanev has added a lot to the team offensively, more so than maybe people thought he would. I think he's kind of taken
Hmm.
pride in wearing that Kraken jersey, especially early on in the season, and he was a great story. But again, he's not the guy you want pacing your team offensively. And to his credit, too, no offense to Jordan Eberle because he's a great player, but kind of the same deal there. I do think you need one kind of standout player. I mean, it kind of helps because they have been getting production from some of these guys that maybe you wouldn't have expected. Like Wenberg's had a pretty good season, but yeah, I do think they need to get maybe a top offensive talent and then just shore up the D a little bit. But I can't say I'm shocked where they're at, and I'm definitely not blaming goaltending. I think they have two strong goaltenders. I think the goalies just kind of have to maybe shake this one off and hope they can retool a little bit with maybe the trade
Yeah, I
deadline and then
think
free agency next year.
honestly, it's not goaltending at all. All right. When you really think of what they've done with goaltending, Grubauer is a great present goaltender, right? So for the next, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 years, he's you got a decent goaltender there. Drager's 27, so you probably have maybe 5-ish years with him before maybe 5 or 6 before he really his play will start to decline. But I think that the Blues, it's offense. I think in my book, it's offense. Looking who they got on D, is the D the best D in the world? It's not the Hurricanes, it's not Tampa by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not a bad defensive core. I think what they need right now is they need a better, higher skilled forwards, because people always think defense. If a team's bad defensively, it's reflective of just the defenseman. It's not. It's how the team plays defensively. Does that make sense? So like if you got
Yeah.
off offensive players who aren't good at playing defense, perfect example is like for Hurricanes fans the first year of Smechnikov, horrible, complete defensive liability. Or another player, Jeff Skinner, miserable, absolute miserable uh, uh, forward defensively. You have to have good players who are able to come back into the defensive zone and be that difference maker, that are hungry for the puck in the defensive zone to break it out going the other way. I think that what they need is they need to. That's their big concern right now, is having these forwards being able to come back into the defensive zone and actually work better together there. Like when you look at some of these, some of the scores from the last week, it's I mean it's rough. It's losing to St. Louis 5-0. They've cranked out a couple wins recently against San Jose and Chicago, but 3-1, 2-1, 5-2, 4-3. They're able to get some goals. It just seems like right now they're just a little bit leaky on defense, and I can't necessarily say it's the actual defense fault. Where when you look at the roster for the Seattle Kraken, the big weakness is more of the forwards, not necessarily the defense.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you there. I mean, I do think it's good for them that they have been getting offensive contributions from kind of all over, but they do need to get some guys who can kind of pace that team. I don't think it really helps if you get like
Yeah,
12 5 goal
definitely.
scorers type of thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's not gonna win you games. I guess kind of what I'm trying to get at is they kind of need a game breaker up front. It's almost it's almost like the reverse of the Oilers, how they are. They have all these guys who are like getting some points, right? But there's no one really standing out. Whereas like the Oilers over there have two offensive juggernauts, and outside of that they have nothing. So yeah, I completely agree. I do think it's offense that they really need to kind of focus in on. I can't really say it's the coach either. I don't know much about Dave Haxtell, but when he was hired, everyone loved him. TJ
Hmm.
Oshie over in Washington loved him as well. That was kind of added to the rumors that he might go there, but yeah. So I really don't think you could judge a coach 1 year on an expansion team either. From what I understand, he's really good with young players. Um, So yeah, I really just don't think you can blame the coach or anything. I do think it comes down to just kind of
I,
shoring up the
I I'm gonna
offense.
I'm gonna
Um,
disagree a little bit with you
just
on
yeah,
that. Obviously, you don't want to judge the coach too hard on the first season of an expansion team. I just my gut feeling is that this isn't the right coach for the job. Uh, what I think would have been a much better idea is if they had went after a Bruce Boudreau type. You got a young set of players down here that you're drafting through expansion draft, right? He's the guy who can sort of kind of take the team, let them fully expose. Because right now, you have to think about the Kraken fans. They're seeing all these losses, right? I'd much rather if Kraken fans saw a game where they lost 5-4 or or 6-7, I'm sure that's more entertaining than getting blanked or having these issues. So I'd much rather throw in a coach that's going to completely put all his eggs, all the marbles into the offensive basket, right, and have them go out and be as offensive as possible. Than their current situation is, which is this sort of kind of this seesaw of games where they're in it and then games where they're not even close. Like I said, there's only so much you can really say towards the coach on an expansion team in the first year, but I don't feel like that was the right hire. The second coach, if it was Dave Haxtell, completely agree. But for a younger group of guys who are trying to gel, who are with an expansion team, you sort of kind of want someone in the locker room who's going to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more, go out, let your hair down, if you will, and go out, score goals, and try to win games 7-6, as opposed to losing games, 3-0. So
and I mean to your point, I do think someone like Boudreaux would have been a better choice. That said, I mean we look at Bruce Boudreaux, what he had on those teams that he was able to kind of implement that with, he had those game breakers up front. You look at Anaheim,
mhm.
he had Getzlaff, Perry, at that time. You look at Washington, he was coming into Ovechkin, Backstrom, Semin at the time and stuff like that. And then you look at where he's at now in Vancouver, he has Besser, he has Pedersen, he has Hughes in the back end. So, like, I do agree that Boudreaux might have had a little bit more success if they would have hired him from the outset, but I still think that that the offense would still kind of have them kind of where they're at right now, regardless. But yeah, I could see it making a little bit of difference, but not too much in the standings. I do think they would have been a much more exciting team. And to your credit too, for a new fan base, I think that's exciting. That would
Mhm.
kind of draw you in and give you hope too. Yeah, if you lose, it does suck. But if you
Yeah,
lose 6-5, at least you got a good game, type of thing, right? You got some excitement, especially if you're a new fan. So yeah, I definitely can see that
yeah.
would have
So
having been
one
a
of the last
positive.
topics we want to get to today is we're looking at these standings. We've got a couple of teams that are doing really great, and a couple of teams that are doing just god awful, right? So we got the game is, will these teams that I'm listing off reach the triple digits in either negative or positive? So right now, let's start with the highest goals for in or positive goal differential in the Eastern Conference, which right now is the Florida Panthers, sitting at 41 games halfway through the season. Do you think that the Florida Panthers can reach a positive 100 goal differential with their remaining schedule?
Ooh, um, no, but I think that can get close. But I also think that depends on
Hmm.
Barkov if he gets hurt again, this season. Um, I, I mean that's 60 goals half the season. I think that's going to be tough as things get tighter and teams start playing tighter, like I said, tighter checking towards as things get towards the playoffs. So it might be tough, but I do think they can get close. I think they could probably match where they're at right now, maybe close to like plus 80.
Okay.
But I can't see them getting past 100. But I mean that is interesting though. That because that's not a team you typically think has
Right.
scores a lot of goals.
Right.
But these last few years, we've seen that they have been able to. But yeah, so they'll get close. But yeah, I don't see
I
them
don't see
doing it.
them
What
doing it
about you?
either. I would sort of agree, like maybe like a plus 90 or so. Um, that being pretty much the absolute as about as close as they're going to get. When you look at their schedule, um, for the remaining of the season, they've got looks like they've got Columbus, Ottawa, Detroit, Edmonton. But then again, they've got stretches where they go out. They haven't gone out west yet either. So they've got 1 week where it's Kings, Knights, Sharks, Ducks. So I feel like those are the games where you're more than likely going to have closer games where maybe if you win it's +1, +2, and if you lose it's -1, -2. But you're not going to. Their schedule is there's a lot of hockey to be played against good teams for Florida. So yeah, I would say tops +80, maybe +5. But so the other half of the game, right, is we're looking at the Montreal Canadiens at a -58. Do they reach -100?
I think so. I do. Which is crazy because we're talking about a team that made the Stanley Cup Finals, right? Like, yeah. But I honestly think they do. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in Montreal, to be honest. I definitely wouldn't want to be a Canadiens fan right now. They're just not a good team at all. So yeah, honestly I think that is
So
almost a
I
sure
would
thing,
I would
but
agree,
who knows?
right? They're going to start moving pieces here shortly to kind of fully embrace the rebuild, which is probably something they should have done years ago at this point. It seemed like for a while Canadians were like sort of kind of there, but never fully there. And now they're at a point now where like they got nothing left. I think the only reason why the Canadians were so competitive for so long was because of Carey Price, right? So like I feel like at the end of the day, it's he was the only reason they were as good as they were for as long as they were. And now that he decided, because remember, like at the beginning of the season, he's like, I'm taking sabbatical for like things and mental health. So like now that he's not there, this is the team that you got. And I firmly believe that with everything going on in the beginning of the season, he kind of smelled like the blood in the water. And he sort of kind of knew going into the season, it was they weren't going to get close to repeating that. I think when Kakaniemi left, you sort of had these. Eric Stahl didn't come back. Perry left. You sort of had these vital pieces that were really important to the success of making the playoffs. Just leave. Like now, what's left is nothing. So I've known that there's a lot of trade rumors circulating around this team on who's gonna end up leaving, and I'm sure that they're going to start stacking up first round picks. But then again, we've also seen um, when teams start doing this, they start trading away some of these older players and getting all this young talent back. The up and coming guys in the farm systems come up and they play better. They're hungry. They want to show the club that they're there. But I still think that yeah, Canadians are definitely going to get to -100.
And looking at it, like they have no offense. I mean, Nick Suzuki, I wouldn't even really consider him too much of a prospect right now because I feel
Hmm.
like he solidified himself as a pretty solid NHLer. But he's super young. This might be his second full season.
Yeah.
He's leading the team in points with 24, right? Like and the season's halfway over. So even if they manage to win some of the games, they're not going to be high scoring games. Someone like Cole Caulfield, who is, I'd say they're, if we're saying Suzuki's not really prospect anymore, then Caulfield's their top prospect, and he's had a pretty off year too after having a pretty nice little coming out party in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, he's been up and down from the minors too. So it just seems like they're starved for offense and they're just not winning games. So I really can't see them making a dent into that goal differential positively. I do think the only way they're going to trend is down. And yeah, I do think they're going to start moving some of these older guys. Someone like Jeff Petrie on the back end, who's put up some pretty decent numbers over the last couple of years, even on the Canadians. Like who haven't really been that great of an offensive team even before. He's had an off year too, offensively. So I could see them maybe putting him out there as trade bait or something like that. But yeah, um, I do think like they'll probably be sellers, and I think that's just going to make it a little bit worse. But yeah, they have to be in rebuild mode at this point. Price, his time's pretty much done. I hate to say it, right, but he's up there in age, and I really don't think they
Hmm.
have a backup plan, and I think we're kind of seeing that
Yeah.
now when you look at the -68, right? And yeah, to your point, I mean, I feel like he probably was dealing with mental health and other things even before knowing that like he was going to have to be the guy this year. But all that pressure definitely doesn't make things easier, mentally. So I can't imagine, how harder that made it for him too. And starting the season, not starting the season, and stuff like that definitely doesn't help as well if he
Yeah, I
if he
wonder if
decides
he
to,
won't, if they
play
won't
this
try to
year.
move him. I just think that with his contract being as big as it is, that might be the only issue. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's making at least 8, if not 9 million a year. Um, that's such a large contract to sort of kind of move to get to a new team. But and not to mention, I don't know if there's really a much of a desire for some of these teams to make that trade. You know, a lot of the teams that are in the playoffs are just so much better than the teams that aren't in the playoffs. So do you really want to go through and try to change up your goaltending? Is mind you, Carey Price is 1A is one of my favorite players. But like, is he really going to take a team? Is he going to take an Avs and put them over the edge? Is he going to take you know Vegas can't afford him. You know, you run into these issues where our team's really going to want to upgrade their goalie at the expense of dropping another player off someplace else because of the cap situation and everything going on with COVID. That's a huge issue that I think the Canadians face right now. Um, that being said, the next team I wanted to talk about was with a plus 47 is the Colorado Avalanche. Do you think they will be able to get the plus 100?
Not with a slow start, but I think they were honestly. I think they're the only team who probably could have. I think they just had a pretty slow start. But offensively and who they have on their team, I think they would have been the one team. If you put a gun to my
Mm,
head and had me choose at the beginning of the season who could, it would have been them. But I think it's just too late in the
I
season and they
respectfully
started too
disagree.
slow.
They play the Arizona Coyotes
Okay.
2 more times. So I feel like and it looks like they've got an East Coast swing here coming up as well, where they've got Islanders, Jersey, and whatnot. I feel like with them being at the halfway point of the season, I feel like that because they had such a slow season, just still beginning to the start, that maybe we might be able to see them make up for that. And I do think that the Avs will hit that plus 100. And then the last team I wanted to go over was the Arizona Coyotes at a minus 63. I feel like that's oof.
um. Yeah. Yeah. I guess why not? I don't. Without looking at their schedule, I just don't think they have. I don't know. I mean, they had a good year a couple years ago, but they traditionally haven't been that good of a team. Um, and I, just seeing some of the games I've seen them play, yeah, I could see them hitting minus 100. I do think Montreal is the one to hit it. I don't think two teams hit it, so um, I'll say no, but I think they'll get close. Like I see they definitely have that potential to have a minus 100 differential, but and that's just without looking at the schedule. If they're playing if they're playing the Avs like four more times, then for sure
They have
100%. But
42 more games left, and they need 37 goals to get to the minus 100. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say 100%. They might even go as high as a minus 110. They poor Coyotes, man. They 10 wins, 26 losses. That's rough. And with all the speculation going on about that team, if I'm the NHL right now, I'm really considering moving this team to someplace else because let's be honest here, there's not a whole lot of fans out in the desert. And don't get me wrong, it's coming from a Hurricanes fan. The ones who are there, I'm sure you guys are loyal. Uh, but man, like we sometimes when you see those Arizona Coyotes pictures from the game and you see 15, it seems like there are 15, 20 people watching the game. It's you know that with the we were talking about the Brad Marchand escrows thing, right? That's sort of kind of where it's really coming from right now. It's more your Florida, Arizona, even with Florida being good. Um, but Arizona, I think it might be time to reconsider having them maybe become the Nordiques again. Maybe I know Kansas City's wanted a team for a while, but um, that's it's rough.
yeah, I do think that they probably should be relocated. I just think it's the wrong like
Yeah.
environment right now with the virus. You know what I mean, to really think about moving a team. But I do agree. The attendance is rough, but they do have, like you said, the fans that are there are loyal. You have to be to kind of continue to watch them. But yeah, and which is funny too, because you read on you go on the internet and Twitter and stuff like that, and you read, and people just speculate, and people, oh,
Hmm.
Austin Matthews will go back home and play in Phoenix, if I guess Arizona, right? Phoenix shows my age, but if Toronto like starts to retool or whatever, I couldn't see that happen at all. I couldn't see that happen. I think, but like, yeah,
uh,
I do think they're a team that might be moved.
yeah,
But doesn't the
yeah.
league
Well,
didn't the
and
league
that's the
kind
reason
of
why I
finance
think if
them
there
their
is a why the team
nucleus?
might leave is because at some point in time you have to realize. I'm sure that some of these new owners, your Tom Dundons. I'm sure there are other owners who want to have a team. You know what I mean? Especially with ESPN picking up hockey again. I'm sure that there are other people who are willing to finance a team. So it's not the NHL. So
That's a really good point.
I would like to see Austin if there is a way to save if we're not moving Arizona out if we're keeping them there. I think that I would really like to see Austin Matthews go back there and sort of kind of pick up that city put him on his back and get them to being successful again. Um, don't get me wrong, Coyotes fans. I'm not by no means trying to like diss the Coyotes at all. By saying that they should relocate. You guys have had some great play with your franchise. Rick Tocchet, Jeremy Roenick, rip. Um, but no, I think that I would like to see Arizona get successful. But at the same point in time, if you're going to have 100 people show up to the game, you have to at some point say, we need to look at relocating.
Yeah, I agree. I do think if there was anything that would save that franchise, it would probably be the homecoming of Matthews. But I just don't think it's a move that would happen. I think that's one of those things where it's tossed out there because that's where he's from, and it would be beneficial to both, maybe. But yeah, I do think, yeah, if you want to save the franchise, you probably move him at some point. But again, I just don't think it's
Fair
the right
enough. Fair
environment for
enough.
it right
All
now.
right, guys. Well, that is it for us today. Just want to thank everyone for giving us a listen. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, email us at flippinpucksandchuckinknucks at gmail.com. Let us know how we look, how much you hate the sound of my voice, or anything else that comes to your mind. Uh, if you
Concerns. We just get totally just taken through the ringer. Concerns.
uh,
I listened to them and I lost sleep.
we
I'm
I
concerned with my
actually
mental health.
lost brain cells listening to these guys. If you have questions about the game, let us know. As well, we'd love to explain, uh, or at least how we think, how we see things, how we feel about things. But anyway, guys, this is Danny P and Dougie signing off. Have a
Have
good
a good
night.
week.